All right, guys. I'm back in the garage. I need to keep working on this commuter car that I just bought. It was a big pain in the butt trying to find the right car. I wanted a four-cylinder Honda with a manual transmission, and I ended up driving and looking for probably 3 months before I found a car that I could purchase that fit the bill. I drove multiple times to multiple different states over several hours away to look at various cars, and it was getting really frustrating to the point where I almost gave up and just bought something different. But like I told you before, the only way you fail is to give up. And like I said, after 3 months and some frustrating trips to look at some pretty beat up cars that looked good on the internet but didn't look very good when I got there, I found this one. And this one actually was wrecked here in the quarter, or fender rather, and I had to get a new fender and fix some of this internal stuff and get new headlights and fix the bumper, and I got all that stuff worked out. And now what I need to do is going through the different fluids and whatnot. I was looking at the brake fluid and the clutch fluid, because again, this is manual, and I'll show you real quick. If we look in here, we can see that the brake fluid, well, it's not quite, it's a little yellow. It's still good as far as what I feel is appropriate for the brake. I could flush it, but I'm more worried about the clutch, where you can see how it's much darker, almost orangish brown, and I'm going to end up flushing that. And it's just like when you helped me bleed the brakes on the Chevelle. It's the same type of setup. That's actually brake fluid too, and there's a pedal inside, and there's the relief valve right here at the well, you can't see when I do that very well. Right here, this guy. So that's actually what I would release to get the air out. And it's the same kind of setup. I could have somebody pump the pedal and open that and have them hold it and then close the bleeder and go through that process. But when I was doing some stuff after you guys hadn't been here in a while, I needed to bleed the brakes on the Chevelle again. So I bought this little bleeder kit, and it all works based on vacuum. So it's a cool little setup. A little quick diagram. So basically I put the air, it goes in through here, and as it blows through here, it comes all the way through and comes out here. But this is in the bottle. So what it does is, as that air passes, it actually sucks air out of the bottle this way, so that as the air blows through, it's also sucking air out of here. So that's what creates the vacuum inside. So real quick, you can see this is the tube that the fluid comes out of, but the hole in the middle there, that's the hole that I just showed on the little diagram that comes up and creates the vacuum. So it's a neat little setup where I don't need a second person. I basically just put this on that bleed screw, open the bleed screw, and suck out the fluid. And the only thing I need to make sure of is that, just like when we did the Chevelle's brakes, this doesn't empty all the way out. And one of the things that came with this kit is this little bottle. And what you do is you put it in here like this. And once it's full of fluid, you would open the valve so that it can come out. And what that does is it allows this to never run out of fluid, which is pretty cool. I don't know, I haven't used this yet, so hopefully it works the way it's supposed to. It's not staying in there very well, but we'll see how it goes. I haven't done this yet, so like I said, we'll see how this bottle goes. But I do know that using that on the Chevelles brakes, it does get pretty loud. So I'll go ahead and sign off, but that's basically the general idea of how you would bleed a clutch. You do the same thing for brakes. I would do the same thing for these brakes, but I would just use the bleeder valve on each of the 4 wheels and pull the fluid out that way. But I'm going to give it a shot on this, and like I said, it's pretty loud, so otherwise I'm just going to sign off. Miss you guys. Hope to talk to you soon. Yeah, I set it up so it's not as loud as I thought. So basically, I check the fluid and I turn this lever here and I start the air at the same time. And I just make sure I watch the bottle. Oops, there it is. And I shut it up, and that's my face. Anyway, down there you can see. So I just want to make sure that before I open it, I have the vacuum going. And you can see it sucks up into the tube. And now this thing's got fluid in it, got all that brown fluid, see? But then the line itself, you can see that the fluid is nice and clear. And now this guy looks great, nice and clear. And that's what you want. So I got all that yucky fluid, all that old fluid out. I'll disconnect and show you what that looks like. Alright, so this is the inside of the bottle. You can see the coloration of that. This is a new fluid. It's the bottle we just had on the reservoir. And this is all the old fluid that came out. Of course, it's a lot more fluid than would have been in the whole system. So it's even lighter than it would have been if it was just the old fluid. But I ran a bunch of extra through it just to make sure it was all clear. And now you can have a better idea of what I was talking about. See how the coloration of these two are about the same? That's why I'm not worried about changing the brake fluid, just the clutch fluid. Now one thing I like to do is check for leaks. So you can see how right under the nipple there, the bleeder screw, I put a piece of white paper, and what I'll do is I'll pump the clutch pedal a couple times, and if there's any leaks, that white paper will show it very easily, because, you know, when you're working with this type of stuff, inevitably you're going to get fluid places where you didn't initially want the fluid to get, just because it, you know, it goes places, and it's like working with water. But this piece of white paper will show any new drips, because what I did was I blew it off. Well, I sprayed it with the brake cleaner and then blew it off with the air hose to get all the residual from bleeding it off. And as you can see, there's nothing on that piece of white paper there. So I'll go ahead in the car and I will pump the clutch pedal a few times. And then we'll go back and check. So pump up the clutch. I'm gonna make sure everything's good. Up top here, generally, you would want to make sure you put the lid back on, especially if you're gonna do brakes. But see how the paper's clean? So that was my mistake. I mean, you can see that I definitely had some fluid come out the side when I gave that a couple pumps. It's not terrible, but I'll put this back on just so I can check again. Put this guy on just so it's on there. But I'll go ahead and pump that pedal a couple more times. And it feels good. The pedal has good pressure. So I'll go ahead and I'll pull that piece of paper. And as we can see, no drips. This actually is a trick that I learned. I don't remember. I think I made it up. I don't know. But it's something I started doing with plumbing. anytime I was going to do some plumbing stuff around the house, under the sink drain or any kind of new connections. It's an easy way to tell if it ever did leak, because what it'll do is it'll just show, on that white paper. And as you're aware, even if paper dries over time, it'll still show the water spots. So it's an easy thing to check, not only for this automotive use, but all over different places you want to check for leaks. Anyway, I thought I'd add that to the overall little video. Miss you guys. Hope to talk to you soon.